Just when you thought it was safe to go to Milwaukee, the Astros show up. Well, I've got Mike Stanton here, and he's going to help us solve the mystery of the lack of offense and what it's going to take moving forward to get this team off the ground offensively.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, man, I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat a low in the way, you can't hit it. You know you want to start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walking back, looking like we ain't cool then. The game's over, might as well put them back to the bullpen, oh yeah.
That's right, and we are back to the bullpen. I'm H-Town Wheelhouse, and he's Mike Stanton. Look, you know where to find the show on Instagram, on iHeartRadio, on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Share with your friends. You know where to find me at H-Town Wheelhouse. I won't bore you with all the details, but Mike, tell everybody where they can find you, sir.
Yeah, that's going to be one place and one place only, and that's going to be on X, formerly known as Twitter, and it's Mike Stanton 29.
That's right, man. Tonight's topic is really the tale of two teams, because I feel like while one part of the team is really doing a solid job holding it down, the other part's just not living up to the billing. Or are they living up to the billing of who they really are? And that's what we'll talk about. And again, I know it's May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo, by the way.
That's right.
Happy. I did order a to-go margarita tonight with my chips and queso to celebrate. So that was nice. Didn't have too much, but I had it at home. I drank it when I got
We had Mexican food for lunch. So
there you go.
We celebrated.
There you go. Cinco de Mayo, just an excuse for us to get out there and
that's all
just have a good time, right? But with that being said, you can't sit back and relax right now with this team, especially if you're the coaching staff, the hitting coaches, Joe Espada. The offense going into this season, you knew you lost Tucker. You knew you lost Bregman, but you had this firebrand and Cam Smith coming up. There was a lot of speculation of could DeCenzo have a breakout year? Jeremy Pena was getting more lift in spring. Yiner was the guy he was last year. He's just hopefully going to continue that in this year. And there were a lot of superlatives that you thought were just going to be automatics. And they have been exactly the opposite of what I think a lot of people anticipated.
Yeah, listen, the crazy thing is when you look back at who this team was offensively last year, this was not a great offensive team last year. Actually, this hasn't been a great offensive team in a while. They've put up numbers, but it's the way they put up the numbers. They would, score 8 or 9 runs in one day, and then the next 2 or 3 games, they score 2. And so their average runs per game would still be there, but you just didn't have the consistency. But, this was the big question for this team going into the regular season. And listen, we are not anywhere close to kicking dirt on anyone. They are the epitome of mediocre at 17-17 after the loss today in Milwaukee, which, you know what? That's okay for right now. That's okay. What are you trying to do? You're trying to tread water, especially with Yordan going on the IL. We don't have any information really on him yet. It does sound like it is his right hand, which is his bottom hand. That is the hand that has all the stress in the swing.
Yeah.
But we have no information on any kind of lengthy stay on the IL. We'll just keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully that's not the case. Now, could that have something to do with his lack of performance so far this year? Of course it could. It doesn't matter how big and strong you are. Yeah. If especially your bottom hand, if your hands aren't as strong as they need to be, it's kind of like having the world's fastest sports car and you put crappy tires on them. Exactly. All the horsepower doesn't do any good if you can't have the rubber on the road and get the acceleration. So it's kind of the same thing with hitters. And the way this team was put together, you needed your big boys to step up. You needed Jose. You needed Yordan to be, the MVP caliber player. You needed Jose Altuve, who got off to a hot start, but has not done much since then. And he's got an OPS now below, not 800, below well below 700.
Wow.
You needed Christian Walker to not have any hiccups and kind of step in and be a beast. And he hasn't been that. You talked about Yiner. Yiner has, and we know Yiner can be streaky just like everybody can, but this whole team has been underperforming offensively. And I think that, you really have to tip your cap to the pitching staff, because the pitching staff is the reason they have 17 wins.
That's true. The pitching staff is the reason why they're at 500 and why they're relevant in this steaming pile of mediocrity. I'm going to keep calling it that because records in this division show that. And I mean, look, you got to tip your hat to the Mariners. Their offense has been overperforming or outperforming their expectations. And that was their big question mark, was like, they have no offense, but they have the pitching, where the Astros were like, there's some question marks in the pitching, but we're pretty sure the offense is going to keep it going. And it's also to maybe add another analogy to the fire. It's almost like when you hear an NFL player out with turf toe. I remember the first time I heard of turf toe, I was like, what are you talking about, turf toe? Well, if your toes are inoperable or they cannot work, or you can't run. And
well, and listen, just turf toe. It's kind of a funny name. Yeah. Okay. It's tendonitis, but it can be extremely painful.
And that's what I've heard. Right. Because I remember one year I actually looked into it, because there was one season I had played fantasy football. I was in a fantasy football league, and I had like 2 players out with turf toe. And I'm like, my guys are out because of their toes. Like, I didn't know what it meant. And they're like, no, you don't understand. Like, think about these guys are like 300 plus pounds, and they've got these ailing feet. Now, I have a question to you, because I get frustrated because maybe I don't understand the full process. Okay. And I don't know how much managers can and can't share. But to me, when Joe Espada says things like, well, we don't really know if it's his hand that's the reason why he's been struggling, I have a hard time believing. I'm like, what is it? His stomach? Or is that just coach speak in there? Because quote unquote they haven't done the imaging, so they don't want to go out there and maybe over speculate. Is that why they say that? Because to me it seems like just dismissive.
Well, the one thing with Joe is always, I know he hasn't been a manager a long time. He's been coaching for a long time. He's always going to stick up for his players, like managers are supposed to. Okay? Right. They're also supposed to protect your players. But we also know that, for the most part, Joe's going to be pretty honest. Now, it may be shades of gray, but he's not going to just flat out just not tell the truth. And I think that's really what's happening in that type situation, is that, he doesn't want to say something that maybe isn't true or misleading, so you just kind of tippy toe around it, you olay it, and then on to the next question. So, I think that's a situation Joe just really didn't know what else to say. So, he says whatever he can just to get some words out there and move on to the next subject.
So we have some speculation from our audience tonight. And since we're on the offense, I think this is appropriate. Someone mentions Walker's strikeouts, but right here, Chris Reyes asked, what do I have to do to see this team hit extra base hits with runners in scoring position? Getting a team to hit with runners in scoring position, is this a pitching coach thing? You keep hearing people saying, okay, are we going to change pitching coaches? Because the Rangers fired their pitching coach. Mm-hmm. Hitting coach. Right. The Rangers fired their hitting coach. What did they do the next day? They scored 8 runs. And I'm like, okay, you don't necessarily, those two things aren't necessarily related.
Right.
But is the approach off, or is it all mental like, what do you do as a coaching staff? Your guys just can't bring guys home. I mean, is there a difference in what you talk or how you game plan? What is it?
Well, I mean, listen, you fire one of the coaches, and we've talked about this before, whether it's hitting coach, whether it's pitching coach, you have a lot of injuries and you fire the trainer, or the strength and conditioning coach. These are the low guys on the totem pole. These aren't the reason why they're struggling. It's always on the player, but you can't fire a player.
Right.
You can release him, but if somebody's really struggling, Christian Walker's striking out, you're not going to fire him. You just signed him to. I mean, you could, but guess what? You're going to write a check for the whole contract and send him on his way. So that's not going to happen. The only time I think, sometimes it's an optics thing that if the pitching staff is really, really struggling, you can even if they get along with the pitchers, maybe you need to make a move and you have somebody step in that just has probably not even a different voice. It's the same voice, but maybe they're just using different verbiage, and a lot of times, listen, I played on a couple teams that we lost, managers got fired. Okay. And it sucks. Okay. Because you go back to your home, you go back to your hotel, you go back home, you go back to your apartment, whatever. And I know I always did this. I would look in the mirror and go, okay, that guy lost his job because you weren't doing yours. And that has as much to do with it as the actual person that you bring in. Rob Thompson took over for Joe Girardi in Philadelphia, and Rob Thompson was the same voice. Now, different person, completely different personality. Joe Girardi was more militant, more hard nosed, very, almost brash with his approach. And Rob Thompson was much more laid back, but Rob and Joe Girardi had been together for a long, long time. I mean, when Joe Girardi and I played together as a Yankee with the Yankees, Rob Thompson was one of the coaches.
Wow.
So we, you go by all the way back into the mid late 90s. But so, and Rob ended up getting a lot of the credit. Okay. And listen, that's fine, because I have no problem with a manager getting credit, because as soon as things go wrong, they get all the blame too.
That's true.
So, in those situations, so what happened? Did Rob just all of a sudden completely change the atmosphere in the clubhouse? No, he didn't. He probably did some, but the rest of it was just the players looking at each other and going, okay, we're the ones that we stunk so bad that dude lost his job. And I think that has as much to do with it as any kind of change of voice or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay. So it's more so almost a kick in the pants, like you said, almost like a smelling salt when you when you get punched and they put the smelling salt, it like wakes you up. That makes sense. That's a really good analogy. Now, switching to the pitching staff, Ronel only gave up 3 runs.
Quality
today.
Start. It was a quality start.
Solid start.
3 runs, 6 innings.
You had 2 runs given up by the bullpen. Not bad, not insurmountable. These pitchers have continued to shove, have continued to show up despite what you saw. I mean, you saw Hunter Brown go 28 consecutive scoreless innings. Lance McCullers.
And by the way, win pitcher of the month.
No, he didn't.
I thought he did. I read he did.
No, you know who beat him?
Who did it?
Max Fried.
Did he really?
Of the New York Yankees.
Okay, he should have won pitcher of the month.
He should. Well, everybody, yes. So Ari Alexander posted after that. He did a comparison of the two, and he was livid that Hunter Brown.
I'm gonna have to go back and see because I absolutely read it.
Yeah, no.
Maybe it was. faux baseball or something like that.
Oh, maybe it was. Well, there
We
is
need to pay attention to
there is Fact Sports, Facts on MLB, but those guys do a phenomenal job of faking a lot of people out. But look, it was neck and neck, and I can see where you got that, because I think everybody was expecting Hunter Brown to win it.
I was. I mean, I didn't think there was even a race. I mean, 28. Our last broadcast or our last podcast, we talked about it.
Yeah,
28 consecutive scoreless innings.
Yeah,
didn't give up a run except the first inning of the first start, and then went 28.
Insane.
And also got some publicity from it. It wasn't like it was quiet, him pitching that well, but we do know where Max Fried plays.
It makes a difference.
Sure does.
It makes a difference, and it doesn't hurt that that team up there in the Bronx is playing well, and it doesn't hurt that you got the spotlight of Aaron Judge. Good God, we got to talk about that guy soon. He is on a run in his career.
Yeah.
And I think the toughest part for a lot of my friends that are Yankees fans is he has yet to bring them a World Series. And I think Aaron Judge's legacy, a lot of people in Yankee Nation are hanging his legacy on the lack of World Series titles that he's been able to see. I'm just telling you what the fans say.
Yeah.
Because
that's ridiculous, because one player doesn't win. Not in baseball.
You're right.
You can have a Michael Jordan in basketball, and he can go again. There's got to be four other guys on the court, but there has to be, he has carry much more weight. Football, the quarterback. You have a bad quarterback, you're not going to be able,
right?
You're not going to be able to win. But in baseball, there's one player just can't do it. He
right.
has to have help.
But I think too that when you think of like legacy players in Yankees history, you look at Jeter and you put him in that team with the three, with the titles that he won.
Yeah.
You look at Mantle, you look at, I'm just saying, like, there are a lot of fans who have not seen a Yankees World Series. The last one was 09.
09.
And so,
first year of the new Yankee Stadium.
Yeah. So, but focus back on the Astros here. This pitching staff continues to just roll out starters and bullpen and continue to just do great things. I mean,
what they're doing is they're doing their job.
Yeah.
And this is the ebb and flow of a major league season. There are going to be times that the pitching staff isn't doing their job. So if you're going to win games, you're going to have to outslug. Then there's other times, like what's happened here at the beginning of this season, that the offense has not been up to par and the pitching staff has to pick it up. At some point, the offense does have to pick it up. And I think there lies the issue, is when you look at this lineup, where is all the offense going to come from? I mean, what you really need to happen is, and I know runners in scoring position is one of the things we want to talk about. Listen, they scored one run today and they got 2 hits with runners in scoring position. So they got a hit and didn't score,
right?
Which happens occasionally, and it is incredibly frustrating. But one of the things that we've been saying for years is, what do you have to do? Keep giving yourself the opportunities. They only had 6 at bats with runners in scoring position today. So they went 2 for 6. So you look at that and you go, okay, that's not bad.
Not bad at all.
They only scored 1 run. And so that there lies the issue. Yes, they got 9 hits, 8 singles. Okay. You only had 1 double and 1 extra base hit, and it was a double. So it's just one of those situations that you have to just keep giving yourself opportunities and keep the hitting coaches, other players, talking with each other, just keep giving yourself the quality of at bat. It's not necessarily, it's about the process. I know there's a lot of words that we hear, the mental process of how you orchestrate an at bat. Your job is to hit the ball hard. We've seen Yordan be pretty good at this over the years. There's a man on third, less than 2 outs, whether you get a hit or not, drive that run in. Those are the little things when an offense is struggling that you have to do. And we really haven't seen that much of that from the Astros. I mean, their offense has been anemic, but they've also had some opportunities that they just haven't been able to capitalize.
Well, you even saw Dubon today popped up on a bunt with there was 2 outs and he was bunting and he popped out. And I'm like, when I saw that play, I laughed. So I was like, this is the embodiment of the entire season. But there was something I wanted to bring up to you that I thought was funny. That also gave me a good chuckle earlier. Chandler Rome sometimes has the best deadpan. I haven't told him this personally, but he to me is kind of the Jerry Seinfeld of like Astros Twitter. He did say, today he talked about the 8 singles and 1 double. He said the Astros have scored 3 or fewer runs in 20 of their 34 games. And so someone said sarcastically, but Chandler, it's not the hitting coach, is it? And he goes, you're right. They could have called the hit a home run play.
Give the home run sign. Like it's that easy.
But that right there, honestly, is a testament to what this pitching staff has done. And like you said, the reason why they were 500 is not the hitting, it's the pitching.
Yeah.
But at some point, you would think, I believe in the law of averages with baseball, right? I mean, do you ever hear of teams going through year-long slumps that are supposed to be contenders?
Sure.
Typically not.
Well, Texas Rangers did it a couple years ago.
Well,
the year after they won the World Series. Well, so I guess it was.
Well, that's true. Yeah, they had a down
because they had an incredible offensive year led by Seager, Garcia. I mean, listen, they beat up everybody's pitching staff. Now they just didn't have any pitching. They didn't have great pitching. They did get hot in the postseason and they end up winning the World Series. But you thought, okay, you know what? Going into the next season, which was last year, you go, okay, maybe it was. It was last year. You go, okay, so they're not going to do the same thing they did last year. But if they give us 80% of that, that's still a very good offensive team. Well, they fell off the edge. They didn't give, 60% of that. And so there are times now the question is, were they that bad an offense? Or were they that good of an offense when they won the World Series? I think they were over their skis when they won the World Series, but I also don't think they were as bad as they were the following year. And there's your law of averages. You look at their average between the 2 years and go, okay, they're a pretty good offensive team. Well, they were a great one year and they stunk the next.
Well, if you look at the 2019 year when we lost to the Nationals in Game 7 at home, that team was, they say, the most talented team, and
arguably the best offensive team the Astros have ever had,
and they didn't win the World Series. Right. And that is just how crazy. But they
ran into Steven Strasburg.
Yes, they ran into Howie Kendrick, ran into a baseball or two. Right. Right. I think I told you this before. I've spoken with Will Harris about that pitch. He was like, I would pitch that pitch 10 times out of 10.
Well, that may be true, but it still wasn't a great pitch.
Right. Well, see, that's what he said it was. He said that was a great pitch. So that wasn't a great pitch?
Wasn't a great pitch. It went out of the ballpark. I mean,
well, I guess there's that. The end result is the proof of the pudding, right?
There are times that you make great pitches and they get hit. Rarely do great pitches go out of the ballpark, though.
Good call.
I mean, I wouldn't say it was a terrible pitch. It wasn't like he hung it right down the freaking middle.
Right.
But, I mean, to say it was a great pitch and you get hit for a home run, that's a tough pill for me to swallow.
You say it's a little bit of denial there?
Hey, listen, I've denied plenty in my career.
You're like, I didn't. I didn't see the call on that one.
Right.
But okay. So the offense, we just have to wait until they wake up. Correct. Like when Yordan's hand gets fixed, he's going to get another hand put on. He's a robot. I'm pretty sure they take his hand off, give him a new one, like in Return of the Jedi,
No, the Bionic Woman. Yes, she had the bionic arm, right? Yeah.
Where you get the $6 million man, where you just like, you know,
Lindsey Wagner.
Yes, there you go. There you go. I mean, whatever works. Okay. I don't care if Yordan comes back and bunts 3 for 3. I just need him back with this team. But I do want to engage in something that I know you love, that I know that you love this about me. I love to talk about things when it's way too early to talk about things.
That's the fanatic in you. Yes.
So do we need to start thinking about if the Astros have anybody like a Framber Valdez that they want to trade, if they think they can sacrifice a pitcher to gain a bat at the trade deadline? Is a bat something big enough that you can go after and get and like give this team a boost? Or is that fool's gold at the trade deadline? Is it more, would it be a better pitching move trade deadline for the Astros? Or is there a bat out there that could wake this offense up midway through the season?
There's really no realistic answer at this point. You know, is Framber worth the conversation? Of course it is. Okay, because he's in the last year of his contract, and you know we just saw the Astros lose 2 of their superstars out of their lineup this last offseason, just simply for that reason. You know, one was a free agent, okay, but you had a chance to bring him back, and the other one, Kyle Tucker, you had to let go because he was going to be a free agent also.
Yeah.
And you can't just let these guys walk out the door. So that is something, you know what, if these guys are running away with the division, that's still maybe behind closed doors. It may be whispered between each other, between Dana Brown and Jim Crane and, you know, whoever is in the conversation. But that's something you have to talk about anyways. Even if it's a 2-second conversation, you say no, you have to at least bring it up. Because you can't just let these guys continue to walk out the door and not get anything in return. I mean, this is a organization that is in transition. This is an organization that, you know, we saw it this past offseason that, you know, they have to do things differently and do some things that they don't want to do, move Kyle Tucker, to try and stay relevant, you know, because they don't have the minor league system that they once had. You know, when you're as relevant and as good as they've been for as long as they have been, you know, you don't have the prospects. That's the other side when we get to the trade deadline, and we'll discuss this again probably in June. When you get to the trade deadline, you have to have something to trade. You can't just say, oh, we need to bring in a bat. Well, what are you going to give up for that bat? Right. And there lies the biggest problem. And you know, maybe Framber, you think that, you know, Hunter Brown has continued to do what he's been doing. You got a number one, you got a top of the rotation guy. You know, some of the other guys have been doing what they, you know, Ronel keeps pitching well, and, you know, Wozniacki continues to get guys out. You go, okay, well, you know what? Yes, we'll miss Framber, but we need a bat way, way more. And maybe you do have to move him.
Because look, there's a kid now. I think he'll be a September call up possibly. There's a guy, Anderson Brito, 20 years old, that moved from Asheville. I think maybe he did a hop, skip, and a jump in Corpus and is already in Sugarland. Anderson Brito's got high marks. You know, Colton Gordon isn't really coming along the way they thought he would, but we saw AJ Blueball come up and really there was a lot of compliments from Joe Espada from the staff, and his stuff looked really good, Mike. I mean,
here's the problem with all that.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're going, and here's where Dana Brown going to lose sleep. Okay. And this is his job. So his job is to lose sleep in situations like this. Do you leverage your future? Which that's who you're saying these guys are.
Right.
You know, do you leverage your future for 2025? You know,
right.
You know, because I can tell you right now, yes, those guys have played well. Those are some talented players you just discussed. But it's going to take, to get a legitimate middle of the lineup bat, it's going to take maybe all of those guys you know? So
Well,
it's either distract from the major league roster, which would be Fromber, or, you know, maybe one of your young outfielders or something. But again, these are guys that you're saying are going to be our future. Do you do that for 2025? And the only way you do that, in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, and if they ask me, it will be the first time, that if the only chance you have of truly leveraging the young guys is if you think that you have a chance of winning the World Series this year. Okay. If you're a long shot, you put let's say another Yordan. There's no such thing as another Yordan, but you put another big bat in the middle of this lineup. Okay. And it costs you, let's say you get to keep Fromber. Okay. You didn't have to give up Fromber, but you did have to give up, 3 or 4 of your top prospects. Does that say, okay, now you have a legitimate shot of winning a World Series? And I don't know if you do with this roster.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, let's say you're using all these other guys that I mentioned to fill holes in, let's say Lance McCullers Jr. continues to grow and perform well. He looked, I thought he looked really well for being
a lot of foul balls.
Yeah. A lot of foul balls. But he's pitching different. The ball comes out of his hand differently. His changeup grip is different. He's behind the ball more, I noticed.
Yeah.
But my question is, would they be more prone, and this is all speculation, to trade someone like a Fromber to get someone like a Nolan Arenado, who said, I didn't waive my no trade clause because I wasn't sure how things were going to pan out with them losing Tucker and Bregman. Because Goldschmidt, I'm sorry, not Goldschmidt, Arenado, Arenado would be, I think, a great addition to this lineup. You could move Paredes to second, then you can just do Altuve DH in left field.
Yeah. I mean that's a move that we've been talking about for a long time, because you even go back to the end of spring training. We thought that was the move that needed to be made. You bring in Arenado, and okay, now you have another Gold Glove third baseman, maybe even a notch better than Bregman. And I think that he was, you put him at Dyken Park, the short porch and left. I think that the power definitely could go up, and maybe that is a move that they can make, because he has said now that, he looked at the moves. It was probably the Christian Walker move was the move that he okay, well, they are still trying to win. So I would say that, but it just never has happened yet.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of speculation, but I just know that I tell people, like, cool your jets. It's not over yet. I mean, no one's like selling this season yet. We're not through, but the offense definitely has got to start stepping up in a major way.
Yeah. And it's the quality at bats. I mean, that's where I was going earlier and got sidetracked was, I mean, that's really what you want the numbers, but it's about the quality of at bat. If you're striking out and swinging at pitches out of the zone when you get guys in scoring position, that's not quality. But if you're putting together 6, 7, 8 pitch at bats, and you're fouling pitches off, and you're hitting the ball hard, and it just goes right, I mean, that's still a quality at bat. It's unfortunate that you don't get the job done. So that's really where the emphasis needs to be, is having those quality at bats with runners in scoring position. And odds say at that point that you're going to start driving in runs, and that's why you just keep giving yourself those opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. And that's all you can do is watch this. Get to the ballpark the next day, get your swings in early, and hope that you keep that Brewers mascot from sliding down that stupid field. Right?
Is it Benny the Brewer?
Benny the Brewer, yeah.
Benny the Brewer.
I remember years ago.
I don't know if I would slide down there. Have you ever? I think Julia did it, and they had a camera up there with. I'm like, oh, hold on. There was sketchy.
There was a news guy. If you look it up on YouTube, there's a guy from their local news that basically like broke his arm or something. That slide is sliding.
Right.
It is not designed properly. I just remember when the Astros were, in their 100-loss seasons, and I was getting that, 10 games for $20 deals.
Right.
And I just remember yelling, "We're getting beat by beer." And someone goes, "No, we're getting beat by people that make beer." And I'm like, that's even worse. So, but hey, man, this has been a good show, Mike. Thank you for showing up and sitting down. It's always great. And you always help me align my thoughts a little bit better.
By the way, Hunter Brown should still have won the pitcher of the month. I'm still going with that.
I got you on that. I think that's a consensus across the board. I mean, Max Fried, if you're listening, we'll gladly accept a recall of the votes, or you can offer him a co-player of the month.
We got a hanging Chad going on here.
Exactly. Someone didn't tally the votes right. But hey, man, for myself, for Mike, and everybody here at Back to the Bullpen, we thank you for hanging out with us. It's a great show. We'll come back to y'all here in a few days to check up on the Astros. Maybe the bats have woken from their slumber and we can talk about some home runs. All right. How's that sound, Mike?
Sounds good. And last, adios.
Have a good one. We are
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, man, I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat low in the way, you can't hit it. You know you wanna start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walk your back, looking like we ain't cool then. The game's over, might as well put on back.